Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests in the studio waiting to be profiled are Salome Jens and author Pamela Kaufman. Actress Salome Jens has been working in the theater and in film since she left Northwestern University. She trained with Berghoff and Strasberg, studied dance with Martha Graham, and voice with John Mace and David Craig. Do you remember any of the tips you learned from all of those fabulous teachers?
Well, I hope I do, because I also teach at UCLA. I'm working with the MFAs. So I'm always amazed at how much I did learn, and it comes out at moments that I really didn't know that was there, that I stored all that stuff.
That's what I was wondering, because it obviously has to take an effect on your acting when you get on stage or in front of the camera.
Well, you know, you're not thinking then about, you know, by this time in my life, because I've been doing this for so long, you know, I certainly have a technique that is mine, and I don't even think about it. It's something that you kind of do on automatic. However, when I'm teaching people, and which I do a lot of, certainly then I have to really take a look at how do you communicate something so that it might be valuable to another person.
When you are using your own style, does the director who's directing you go along with it, or is there a
well, in other words, they'll
that
give you
says
directions.
Salome?
Yeah, they'll give, no, because I'm not using my own style. In other words, I'm looking to do the character. So they may have other ideas about the character, but certainly I'm looking to fulfill the director's vision at all times. So if he has a vision that or if he sees something I haven't seen, I'm always, you know, open to new ideas.
You took so many classes. Was it a career path for you? Is that what you were focused on when you were in Northwestern?
No. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to be a musician, a dancer, or an actor. But when I got to New York, I started studying with those people because I knew I didn't know anything. I had seeing all of the incredible performances that you see. You know, you sort of say, well, I think I have things to learn. And having been a musician, I realized you don't become an actor without some craft.
What do you play an instrument?
Yeah, I play the piano.
Oh, I see. So at Northwestern, is that what you were you pursuing that?
No. I was pursuing everything.
You were?
I just said, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I want to live. I want to get out of here. I want to get to New York. I knew I'd be an artist, but I didn't know exactly in what area. I might have been a modern dancer, but since I started to work in the theater and also got into the actor studio and started to work with Strasberg, I really found that it seemed to be the place for me.
Well, when you decided, or when you thought you were going to be a dancer, because a dancer is always a dancer in their body and in their mind. Do you still work out? Do you still take dance classes?
Not right now. I do a 3-mile walk every day, and I do weights. Yeah.
So it's almost like a substitute, but there's something that a dancer has to have that.
It's wonderful to feel good in your body, isn't it? Yeah. And
when,
as an actor, you really have got to be well.
When you went to New York, you were on Broadway, probably right away. Far Country you did, Patriot for Me, Nightlife. Right. How did that all happen? Was it from the drama classes?
Oh yeah, well no, I started to work off Broadway first. I got into The Balcony, which was an incredible Jose Quintero and Circle in the Square.
And you got a big award. You got an award for The Balcony. It was a very sexy part.
Yes.
Was it?
It's so funny. It was the worst girl, but it was so funny because Murray Shiskel said to me this time, because he had seen that production, and anybody who saw that, he said, Salome, it's like starting all over again.
I was just going to say, because that was a very sexy role.
And it was dressed very similar to what I'm dressed in this play.
And you are now at the Odyssey Theater,
Right.
and We Are Family by Murray Shiskel.
Right.
And you actually disrobe on stage.
Yes, right.
And I'm going,
into my underwear.
I can't believe, look how fabulous she looks. That's why I asked if you kept in
oh yeah, no, I do
shape.
I work out. I do the weights.
I went,
yeah.
oh, she's not going to take that dress off, is she? And I think your co-star, Alan Miller, was wondering too, when he turned around and saw you
yes, well,
disrobed.
that's good acting.
Since he sees you all the time.
He's a wonderful actor, yes, right. He knows I'm going to do it.
So it started off Broadway, and it's now the same kind of feeling has come all the way full circle.
It's interesting to be doing a role like this at this age, 40 years later, you say, isn't this rather extraordinary?
Well,
and am I not crazy? But nevertheless, that's what's happening.
Well, it's happening at the Odyssey, and
yes.
This is a new play by Siskel, right?
Yes, it is.
And
it had a tryout in Sacramento. However, it was the first time it was really, done, fully produced. Yeah.
So
and he was here with us for a couple of weeks working on it as well.
I know, and they went back to New York. We lost him. But we get these actors coming and going all the time, which is okay with us in LA. You did Genet's Balcony with, of course, fabulous Jose Quintero.
Exactly.
And then you did Desire Under the Elms.
Yes, also with Jose. Jose directed that.
Moon for the Misbegotten.
And Moon for the Misbegotten. That was also at Circle in the Square. That was, major, because we did it before anybody else had done it. And I mean, where it was acknowledged as a major piece.
But were you part of a company
No.
at Circle? Oh, you weren't at Circle.
But I was part of the Lincoln Center company originally with Kazan and Whitehead when they started the Lincoln Center. So I was in that original company.
So you did a lot of productions there as well.
Yes, I certainly
And
did.
when you're in a company, whatever comes up, do all the actors partake? Like whatever play they're going to produce?
We weren't in all the plays. There were 6 plays the first 2 years, and I was in 3 of them.
Oh, so.
And they were in rep. So in other words, they were being played, consecutively together. Yeah.
Well, you starred and you've acted in a lot of work by contemporary people. You've also done a lot of work by Shakespeare.
Right.
You
I've
did
done
Macbeth.
a lot of classical things.
How?
Macbeth and Cleopatra, Winter's Tale.
How
Winter's
does
Tale with
that-
Miss Ryan, who I'm working on another play right now that we're going to open May 10th of Donald Freed's.
Oh, I know Donald Freed. I've interviewed him as a playwright.
Yeah.
What is it going to be?
Well, Donald Freed has written a new play called How Shall We Be Saved? And we're going to be doing it. We'll open it May 10th. So I'm in rehearsal for the other play, and it's 48 pages of solid dialogue. I cannot believe what Donald's asking me to do.
Well, that's
with
the other
Mitch.
thing I wonder is how an actor remembers all the dialogue.
I'm wondering too right now, as I'm trying to memorize this.
When you're doing the classics, do you need any special kind of training, or does something else happen besides just the director being there with you?
No. In other words, you do Shakespeare. Certainly, usually the theaters are bigger, or certainly that was in my experience, and you need, knowledge of the language, and there's another kind of demand, a heightened demand that's made on you because of the plays. The dramatic line of the plays require a lot of risk.
But what happens doing it from a perspective, say, an American perspective, and not having trained in London? Have you trained in
No, I haven't trained in London.
Do you
but
think
I
it's
certainly
important?
No.
Okay.
Gielgud said it.
good.
He said, American actors are wonderful with Shakespeare because we have a kind of energy, a passion for risk that is uniquely ours. Not that the English don't have their way. But I did a Hamlet with Stacy Keach. Stacy was a fantastic Hamlet. We have wonderful actors in this country. So I don't take a backseat to the English. I just say we're different and we have things to learn from each other.
That is an interesting point that Gielgud would say because of the risk.
Yes.
And I think that's probably
and the
true.
passion, and Americans are much more somehow willing to fully express. It's not that stiff upper lip stuff.
Exactly. I can see what you're saying. It probably does work very well, doesn't it?
Well, I think that Shakespeare in his time, it was kind of wild,
You came from New York, I guess,
Yes.
to LA, I don't know when,
Yes.
but just to do films and TV?
No. I came to New York here, actually I was doing Hamlet, and I just had made the decision that I wanted to, we still have an apartment in New York. My brother-in-law is Anthony Zerbe, and we
yeah.
have an apartment that we keep, and we're kind of back and forth.
The
But I'm
two
home
of you, do you
basing here.
split it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. So no, it's really.
But
and
you are based here?
No, yeah.
Are you still making a lot of films?
I haven't made a lot. I made a film last year called I'm Losing You.
Uh-huh.
And, but you know, certainly that's, and I also have directed a film. I
Oh, you
got that
did?
AFI grant, so I directed my first half-hour film, and certainly I'm looking to do more of that.
Is it a woman's grant? Is it a women director's grant?
Yeah,
That's
the
very,
DWW, Directing
yeah.
Women's Workshop.
That's fabulous. And how does that compare, the directing and the teaching? Were you learning things at the same as when you're teaching?
Well, what I noticed, you know, I've been teaching for now over 20 years, so I
Oh,
noticed
I
that I
didn't
do a
know
lot
that.
of directing. I don't even,
When
you know,
you're
I don't call it
teaching?
directing, but when I'm teaching, and my kids do projects, and I shouldn't call them kids, and my students do a lot of projects. So, and at the, you know, when they're doing their projects, I'm very much involved with the directing of them.
Would a class come, say, to the Odyssey and watch
They
you?
all did.
Oh, they did?
Oh, yeah. They've all been there. So I have my entourage. It's just wonderful. In fact, all of them, about 20 of the kids from UCLA I was teaching this quarter came, you know, opening night. So I had my own band there.
That was great, but did they want to meet with you afterwards and critique?
Oh, sure.
And did they have
They don't
critiques
critique. They
then?
just said, "You're wonderful."
That's why we like them.
Of course.
You're wonderful. You were wonderful. Were there any, you don't come on until the second act.
Yeah.
So what do you do for that whole first hour and whatever?
I study lines of Donald Freed's new play.
How can you do that? You're reading and trying to memorize something else and then
Not
just
the
going
same.
on
You
stage?
know, I wouldn't do that if I was opening, but once you've kind of settled into a play, I'm kind of joking, but once you've settled into a play, it doesn't really require, and particularly this play. There are some plays I wouldn't be able to do that with. If I were doing Lady Macbeth or something, you know,
You have to
Cleopatra, I might not, you know, but you have to really know yourself and your instrument and take care. But certainly, when that whole hour before I go on, I find
know.
myself getting ready, and then if there's time, I find other things to do.
Because you have to be there the same time as the other actors.
Yes, they like to know that, because if the understudy had to go on, they'd have to have the time for
There
that.
are 4 men in the play. Is that right?
3.
4? Oh, 3.
Yeah,
You're
and
the 4
the director.
people.
Yeah, and I love my men. They're fabulous men.
Well, you're the center of those men.
It's wonderful. I love being a
You're
woman
kind
among
of
men.
bossy in some respect, and you're kind of like loving in another respect.
Yeah, I get to do a lot of colors.
Now,
Yeah.
what happens? Does Murray Shishkel come back and check
No, I
it to
don't
see
think
if it's going the way
No,
it
but
wants
the
it?
director may. I don't know if he will or not. He said he would, but he hasn't yet.
Does he live in New York too?
John Shuck. No, they have. I believe they're bi-coastal as well. He
Oh,
and his
I
wife.
see. So would he just come in and check to
He
see
might.
if it's going on?
He
Or
might.
once he's finished, does somebody check to see that you're doing everything
Well,
right?
the stage manager kind of keeps, and also the producer. You know,
Oh.
she's very much there. You know, so I believe that, you know, if anything was really going off, they would, you know, tell us. But
You,
we're all professionals.
You're a real stage person. I mean, you've worked at the Mark Taper, you've worked at the Huntington Hartford, you've worked on Broadway, off Broadway. What is your preference?
Oh, I like it all. I like it all. It's wonderful. You know, it's as an actor, you really want to do it all, and all of it is valuable. I mean, I love that. I did a film with John Frankenheimer called Seconds, and I think that, you know, it's wonderful to have that film. You know, with the theater, the performance is dead the moment it's over.
Do you
So,
feel
know,
that?
Oh, sure.
I know,
You know?
that's how I always feel too.
But then you always look at, you know, what next, what's going to happen next. So it's not, there's nothing tragic in it. It's just that it's also nice to do a performance and have it recorded.
Before we finish,
Especially with a wonderful director.
I
like
was just going
John.
to say, before we finish with, like, John or with a director in film, do they direct you the same way as a theater director would direct, stage director?
No, because they're directing for the camera, and that's a whole other thing. It is different.
Can they trade off, do you think?
I don't think they want to.
They like
You know, I'm sure John would be an interesting director on stage, but I don't think it's anything that, you know, I think he prefers, he's picked his medium and he's wonderful at it.
And I'm not saying this about any director in particular, but do you think one is easier than the other?
No.
Oh.
I think they both have their demands. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say so.
And you've directed.
Yes.
And do you look at a script differently as a director than an actress?
Yes, you do. You know, when I'm an actress, I'm looking at my part and how it relates. But nevertheless, when you're a director, you're responsible for everything and everyone, and the casting, and which is so important. So no, there are many, and you know, you're just responsible for all the logistics of that piece. So it's quite demanding, and a whole nother kind of consciousness. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you came here and acted for us today.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's my pleasure.
We love
you ask good
you.
questions.
We love seeing you on the stage too.
Thank you.
And don't go away, because we'll be right back with author Pamela Kaufman. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with a best-selling author of historical fiction, Pamela Kaufman. Pamela was born in the Midwest farming community, and it was during the Depression, and she didn't know what she was going to do as far as a writing career, because she was destined to be an actress. Is that what happened?
Well, sort of. I was destined to be nothing, I think.
And one thing you did, you spent a summer at Chautauqua.
I started learning to act at the Cleveland Playhouse, and I have to tell you, I was in a very parochial little community, and my family was against acting. I had never seen a play. It was a teacher who said to me, "You should be an actress." And so I did. I became an actress. I mean, just like that.
And is that when you went away for the summer? Is that
I went
part
to the Cleveland Playhouse, and the Cleveland Playhouse, their summer theater is in Chautauqua, New York.
And you know, that's very interesting, because it was all-American, heartland, a center of the country, wasn't it?
Well, that's what it seemed like, yes.
I mean, I didn't know much about Chautauqua, but I've been reading a little bit about it.
It's a wonderful place. I guess it's still going and going well, and it's simply a wonderful place.
So you went to New York and you started a modeling career. You modeled and you acted?
I acted. I just, anybody who told me to do something, I did it.
Oh, that was good.
The head of the Playhouse said, "You're ready for New York." So I went to New York. I had enough money to last 6 weeks. I got a job. And then the publicity man at the theater said, "We would like you to be Miss Subways. So would you go up and see John Roberts Powers?"
Oh, that's how that happened.
And John Robert Powers said, "I would like you to model." And as I say, somebody says something, I do it. So I said, okay. And I started modeling during the day and acting at night.
But that was actually really fabulous for your resume, modeling.
It was.
If you were going to go on the stage.
and for my bank account.
Oh, because it probably was great.
It paid very well, and I remember getting a call. I was very naive. I'm trying to tell you this in an offhand way. I got a call from the Powers Agency saying, "Haven't you received our checks?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yes, I'm saving them so that I won't spend them."
You never cashed
I never cashed them.
I think we like to do that early on. It felt like a lot of cash.
Felt
there,
like a
those
lot
checks.
of money.
Well, then when did writing start?
Writing started really quite late. I left the theater when I married. That's a story in itself. That's not what we're here to talk about. And then I decided I needed an education. I went to UCLA. I got a PhD.
Oh, because you had gone right from high school into acting.
Yes, I did.
See.
I did. And so I got my PhD. I became a professor.
Oh, I see.
And once I became a professor, I started writing. By this time, I was in a second marriage, and my husband was a writer. And acting flows very naturally into writing.
But what did you get your PhD in?
English literature.
Oh, so you were actually on the roll of
Yes,
working
I was.
into this
I was.
thing. You write historical novels. What is a historical novel? Or
Well,
you write history notes and make them fiction?
No, it started this way. I loved Chaucer. I loved Chaucer, and I chased my English professor down the hallway at UCLA, and I said, "This is the most wonderful stuff I've ever read. Thank God it's in Middle English, because nobody can read it. It's saved for you."
Right,
Forever. It's like the checks.
Once you learn how to read a paragraph of it, then it's good. But to read it all is difficult.
It's difficult. It's difficult. But I kept thinking, it was in the back of my mind, if I could just figure out a way to do this. Then my husband and I spent a summer in northern England on the Scottish border, and I learned that the Chaucerian language and the Scottish dialect are virtually the same thing.
Oh.
And wheels began moving. If I could just think of a story,
Is
you
it
see.
the rhythm? Is it the rhythm?
It's the actual language.
It is the language.
And it's very comic. You know, we think of these Scottish people as being the stand-up comics, and it is very funny, and Chaucer used it marvelously.
I see.
So then I was the head of a women's program at a university where I was teaching, and one of my students came up with a rape law in the 12th century in which a young woman, if she were raped by a knight or a lord, could force a marriage. Or if she didn't want to marry him, she could castrate him, castrate his horse, and castrate his falcon. So I had
His three favorite things.
You got it. So I thought, this is the germ of a story.
Oh.
And that's how I began to write my first story. And
The
I
three?
made...
Oh, no, that wasn't the first novel you wrote,
That was the
it?
first novel, and it was... I put a Scottish character in with a little girl who was English, and every time he would speak, she'd say, "What do you mean? What did you say?"
So
as he could translate, you see, and the reader then would know the Chaucerian language.
I was just going to say, so you were teaching.
I was teaching.
You were teaching Chaucer. You were teaching that language.
Yes, and that book, Shield of Three Lions, became a big international bestseller.
It was an award-winning book, and the Three Lions was.
Shield of Three Lions, right here.
I see.
Yes. And then...
But those were based on facts. No.
No, it was fiction. I fed facts into it.
You fed facts into it. That's what I'm trying, because we talk about, like, this new book, The Book of Eleanor, is a book of fiction, a novel. Let's say novel.
It's a book of fiction about Eleanor of Aquitaine. She sort of backed into my life because I was writing about the 12th century, and she was the most famous woman in the 12th century. She became a minor character and then a major character, and finally I just decided to go with her entirely. I have to tell you, it's taken me 17 years to write this book.
Is that right?
Right.
Well, it feels like 17 years full.
It does to me too.
It's really heavy. And how many pages?
500 and something. But
yeah,
it's
500 and something. And it's published by Crown.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful cover. I love the cover.
Well, thank you.
And she was how old, though, when she started? 11, 13?
When she started what?
When she started her her life.
She was 15 when she became Duchess of Aquitaine, and she was immediately grabbed for marriage because she was extremely wealthy.
Oh,
and that will
that's
do
why.
it. That will do it.
I see.
Now, she has the reputation of being very beautiful and very clever, which she was, but it was the money. It was the money that attracted France. It was the money that attracted England. And she became queens of both countries, and she divorced her first husband, and the second husband she raised an army against. So she was a modern lady.
How much can we depend on reading this? How many facts can we depend on? What can we know that is true?
All right.
That's very, very difficult to approach.
Eleanor of Aquitaine, her life is only slightly documented. You read a lot about her, but a lot of it is fictionized or romanticized because she lived in the 12th century, and the only records from the 12th century are from what they call annalists. They were monks living in monasteries, and they would write the events of each year.
Right. So they would pass it on in
their
notebooks.
That's what they call the primary sources, and those primary sources never mention women.
Oh.
So
So even if she was prominent, if she were prominent, she wouldn't have been mentioned.
She wouldn't have been mentioned. Now, there was gossip about her.
I
The
see.
gossip lasted, as it probably will last in this century, you know. What I did, I used all the facts that I could get. I think there's as much about Eleanor, the factual life, in this book as any book that you would read, because I've been in all the places she's been, and I have delved into her as much as I could.
So the descriptions, and meeting people and their recollections of what she did or what they learned
But my
about her.
But my approach, the book of Eleanor, she writes the book. I'm in her consciousness.
I see.
That's what took so long, because little girl from the Midwest becoming the Queen of England and the Queen of France is a big leap. And it took me a long time to really understand her. But I think I do. I think I grab her now, and she's a fascinating woman.
So while you were writing the Book of Eleanor, were you writing Banners of Gold?
No, I'd finished that.
Oh, you'd finished that.
That had
so
been
you
published.
So how long was it? That was another best-selling
Yes, that was another big bestseller
novel. Banners of Gold. How long was that before you started this?
I started it, well, Eleanor was a minor character in Banners of Gold, so I was already on my way while I was
Okay.
writing it.
So when you started writing Eleanor, even though it took 17,
Ye-
when you took 17 years, were you doing other things in between?
Well, I wrote another novel.
That's what I mean.
Oh, yes, I
So
lived.
she was kind of there, right?
Right,
All
right.
the time, but you were working on her little by little?
Yes, and
The descriptions of where she lived and things like that and what she wore, were those factual?
yes, that I was able to do, and the context of her life. She was a cultural icon. Aquitaine, which doesn't mean anything to us,
Right.
was a huge entity in Europe. It was originally Aquitania from Rome.
Oh, right.
And it was the richest part of, and the largest part of Europe. So she was a wealthy woman, but it also had its own culture. It had never been completely conquered either by the barbarians or by the Christians. And there they had the troubadour music and the...
So those things are all factual that
yes,
we read about.
they are factual.
Well, we have to pick up the Book of Eleanor and read it, but
I
we
wish
can't
you-
do it right now.
I wish you would.
Our time is finished. Thank you very much, Pamela Kaufman, for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 917. We'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.